who was director of the Norton Gallery, had a George O'Keeffe that was hanging upside down in one of the galleries. It was one of those pictures where the peaks were shown mirrored, reflected in a lake in front of it. And one woman came up to him and said, "You know, you got a picture hanging upside down." He said, "Well, you know, it's just a test to know whether you're paying attention to what we're doing in this gallery." But I was there and I said, "Listen, when you look at an object, you only see the light reflected from that object. You don't see the object. The light goes through your eyes and over the cones in your eyes that are different from every person. My orange is entirely different from yours. And then it's imprinted on your brain pan upside down. So in reality, you're looking at that upside down painting right side up. You turn it upside down in your mind, and then impulse travels up your optic nerve and goes into your brain, and you make an opinion about what you see, and there at that point it draws upon your entire life to make a definition." So this morning we're going to talk about that impulse that's traveling up your optic nerve to give you an idea so you can begin to see just how difficult this is for anybody who's actually done it to explain. I've got a list of questions here, and I'm going to make sure that I get them right when I tell John, because whenever I write something down and then I try to summarize it, I always go off into some other areas. So the first question is a relatively straightforward one. It's what kinds of ideas can you explore and develop in your painting that you're unable to do in your music?
Talking to me?
Talking to you.
I didn't know you were talking to somebody out there. After about the third word of yours, I kind of got lost.
You got the I knew it.
I got lost.
I knew it. In other words, what I'm trying to say is, what ideas do you find that you can develop in your painting that you can't do in your music? Is there a kind of, well, I've done this, I'm a songwriter, I've done these particular songs, I find there's something else that really I'd like to do beyond that?
Well, the practicality is that once a song is done and released, you really can't take it back. I mean, you know, I've got a song that I wrote a long time ago when I was a kid called Pink Houses, and every time I hear that song on the radio, I think, God damn it, why didn't I do a better job on the last verse? You know, because the last verse could have been much better. If I would have written that verse today, it would have had some meaning. But as it turns out, the meaning is kind of vague and lost on the audience and even on the writer. So that's one thing you can do. Is some of these paintings hanging in here have been in the works for 15, 20 years. That painting of me and Elaine is that's 15 years old. But I would work on it and I'd hated it, you know, and then I'd work on it some more and then I hated it because it was a different process. That's why it looks different than the rest of these paintings. So that's one thing you can accomplish, is that you can go back and you can keep working on stuff. I'm just looking around the room here. That painting right there's probably got 10, 12 years on it, you know, and if you see there's all kind of collage work going on. Some of the, she was actually another painting that was, then I glued her onto the canvas to be part of that, and that was, the big face was another painting. And so, you know, it just developed, and that little vase was painted in like 1980, I think 85, and it was its own painting. I hated it, so I just made the best of what I had, and consequently, I think I made something beautiful out of a bunch of stuff I didn't like. So I think it's a beautiful painting. I think it's. If you put that in your house, there'd be no room for anything else. You wouldn't need any furniture. So that's the whole thing right there.
Well, you know, it always begs the question that and you hear this from a great many artists, that a painting is always in the process of becoming, you know? And it must be difficult to just kind of send your child out into the world, so to speak. But you have to make that decision at some point, right?
I don't treat my paintings so preciously as that. Because I mean, there's not a painting in this room I couldn't go back to work on. I look at every painting and I go, oh, I can fix that. That could be better. Oh, that needs to work on. I want to get them out of my studio because they take up too much room, you know. So no, I'm not in. I never fall in love with anything I do, and the reason I don't fall in love with what I do is that I'm so used to. I think the music broke me in on that. Is that, you know, if you fall in love with the music that you make in the studio, the guys in my band would always go, oh, this is the best song, this is the greatest song, this is going to be a big hit record, and I'd always look at them and go, yeah, they're all hits in here. It's when you take them out to the general public you have trouble.
You know, it's very interesting that the great surrealist painter Mata, I had the pleasure of knowing Mata for a long time. And when they introduced computers, Mata would put all of his paintings on a computer. And then he would go back to them and he'd say, you see this area right here that I passed over? Let me take that out, because I know that's an idea that I never got to work more on.
Right.
Did you ever find that when you look at some of the stuff?
I think that happens all the time. I mean, you'll put something on a canvas and then you'll walk away from it and go. I mean, for me, it's you know, it could be 10 minutes, and I'll go, what the hell was that? What's that got to do with anything? Why did I put that there? And but at the end of the day, you know, for me, is the painting beautiful? Even if it's grotesquely beautiful, is it beautiful? And that's really my goal.
It's a quality assessment on that, yeah.
Yeah, you know, I mean, and beauty, as you know, is in the eye, as you said, is in the eye of the beholder. But for me, it's like, can I look at it and go, wow, there's something beautiful about that. You know, and like I'm the same with my houses. I mean, my houses are decorated properly, mathematically correct. There's a lot of, even though it looks like scribbling up here, there's a lot of math in this painting that you people probably would go, what the hell is he talking about, math? But there's a lot of math, there's a lot of balance that has to take place. Color has to take place. If you look at the painting over there, the red around the guy's head balances out with the red in the cross, and the red on the maker's face, and then the red in the little funny guy in the corner's mouth. I mean, all of those things create balance, and that's all math. And what I'm talking about is that this room looks nice right now, but what if we shoved all the chairs over here on one side and we all sat? It wouldn't look so nice. Yeah. You see what I'm saying? So the math, he's got, you know, the way this room is arranged, the math is correct. I mean, there's these chairs, and they're in the middle here, but if we took all these chairs and shoved all the fucking chairs over here, and we all sat over here like this, and looked at each other, we think, this is screwed up. This is screwed up. So the same thing takes place on a canvas. You know, the same thing has got to happen on a canvas. The same thing has got to happen in a song. You can't have the drummer going, and the bass player going boom, 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 boom. Then there's no room for anybody else to play. You guys done took up all the space. That's why piano players are going boom, 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 and he's playing the melody, because he's doing the whole thing. He's playing the bass, he's playing the melody, he's playing the accents, he's doing the whole thing. So it's all the same business. It's just problem solving. How do you solve this problem? You go up to a canvas, you create your problem, and you try to solve it.
Now, when you were in New York, John, you went to the studio school.
Went to New York Art Student League for 2 weeks.
2 weeks. That's where you learned all of this.
I'm still trying to learn what this guy taught me, but yeah, no, I learned what I'm talking about from being on the job training.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with music and with, there's only one way to learn how to paint, and I'm still trying to learn that way, but that's by painting. You can't talk about it, you can't imagine it, you can't do sketches, you know, you got to paint.
I remember when I first heard John talk about that, so there was a question about, some philosophical question, how are you getting that image, what are you dealing with it, and John saying, I got this in my head, I'm trying to figure out how I can get it from here onto that canvas.
Right.
There's no philosophical kind of, manifestations going, that's what I'm doing. Let me talk about some of the portraits in here, especially your portrait. And I bring other artists involved because I consider John one. So when I talk about people like Alice Neal, for example, knew Alice very well. I asked Alice, have you ever done a self-portrait? Alice said, never. She said, oh yes, I did one. It was a skull on the windowsill. And I said, but he says, that's as far as I've got of doing a self-portrait because I dreaded the confrontation of looking at myself in that self-portrait. So my question would be, what are you searching for in your self-portraits?
Well, I know you won't believe this, but at one time I was handsome. Many years ago, I was considered handsome. Now, gone, now. So well, thank you very much. God loves a liar. I don't really, when I paint myself, and I have numerous times, it's only because I've run out of ideas and I still want to paint. I have no problem with facing myself. I know who I am. I know what I look like. I know what I got to try to do to create how I'm feeling in, like the very first painting that little teeny painting. I did that painting in 20 minutes, and it was just bam, 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 and it was done and it was over. And but it filled the need for me to create, which is really, my problem or my good fortune, however you look at it, the need to create. And so sometimes it can be that craving. It's the same craving that, I have the same craving that you have when you want to eat, or if you want to have sex, or if you want to watch a movie. To me, it's the same craving. I've got to fulfill that craving either with song or by painting. I suffer terribly from anxiety and being a hypochondriac. And I'm doing a play with music with Stephen King. Steve has the same problem I do. We're always fucking sick. Always something where it's like, oh, this hurts, or I think I'm having a brain tumor, or I've got cancer, and we text back and forth, and they're funny texts. I'll go, Steve, I just beat the shit out of cancer, man. This is a true story, and this was a text that I sent Steve last week. I was at my house, and I sat down at the dinner table, and there was a spot right here, like a dark bluish green spot. I thought, what the fuck is that? And I started looking at it, and I think, oh God, I saw these things on like my grandmother when she was ready to die. What the fuck is that? So anyway, excuse my language. I started rubbing on it, and I got some water. And of course it was oil paint. But there for about 20 minutes, I had some kind of incurable cancer. So I call up Steve, and I'm not call up Steve, but I was with Steve. I said, Steve, why do we do this stuff to ourselves? He goes, John, what kind of idiot are you? He goes, we make stuff up. He goes, we make stuff up for books, we make stuff up for songs, we make up stuff for paintings, we make up stuff for plays, and then when we run out of stuff to make up externally, we turn it on ourselves. And we make up shit about ourselves. You know, so that's why it's best, and that's why Steve, why is he so prolific? Why does he write so many books? Because he doesn't want to turn that anxiety on himself. I don't like to have that anxiety turned on myself. If I sit around and don't do anything, I'm in the fucking hospital. You know, they're going to be, get the ambulance here, John's having a heart attack, John's got a brain tumor, John's got... Of course, I have none of those things. I know, because I've been to the doctor. So that's my creative, I have to create. I have to do it, just like you guys got to eat. You guys got to have sex. You guys got to, there's things that you people have got to do every day. I've got to do it, because if I don't, I get sick.
That's along those lines. I was watching, I talked to Chuck Close once, and he said, most artists feel that inspiration is for amateurs. I said, what do you mean by that? He said, you got to work a long time at something that you love before you begin getting to the point where you're going to get something that you feel that is really an accomplishment. You believe that along that line? I mean, you literally, what they call journeyman artists, meaning that you every morning or at a certain time you go into your studio. And you got to work that time, because at the end of that time, you've got a product. You've got something that, and it could be for years then, right? Well, yeah, I mean,
I disagree with him a little bit. Inspiration is a wonderful thing, and I'm inspired all the time. But I have a hard time making my inspirations applicable to my ability. You see what I'm saying? I aspire to do something, and my ability doesn't allow me to do it. It happens on canvas. It happens in song. When I feel sorry for myself and I'm complaining to people, which I know you guys can't believe, but I do complain a lot, I will say, I'll never reach my full potential. My life won't be long enough for me to get as good as I thought I should have gotten. And that's in song, and that's on canvas, and other things too, like girls. I'll never get any good with them. I've already given that up. So I just realized that I'm never going to reach my full potential as a human being with the talent that I've been given. I'm just not going to do it. I'm never going to write the songs that are as good as I think they should be. I'm never going to be able to paint as good as I should, or as much as my desires are. So, but I'm inspired by everything. I can't even. Bob Seger asked me one time. He goes, "I'm having a writing block." I said, "Bob, look out the window, Bob. I mean, there's so much to write about. There's so much to paint. There's so many words to, I've got so many, my next goal is to before I die, I want to write a novel. I already got the novel in my head. I'm just too lazy to write it down, So I have a lot of stuff that I want to do. I'm 63 years old, and I just feel like I'm hitting my stride in songwriting. I know a little bit about painting, less about women, and even less about myself. So,
they say every artist, every creator stands on the shoulders of specific people they admire that have gone before. That's what happens when you get what you do into a tradition, because we're all dealing with this cultural tradition. Who are some of the people, who are some of the people whose shoulders you stood on, that you have to learn?
in my life, if it's out there, it's mine.
Yeah, it's-
If somebody has put it on a piece of canvas or on a piece of paper or in a lyric, I don't give a shit. It belongs to me at this point. You put it out there, now it goes from my ears to my eyes to my filter, out of my hands, and it belongs to me.
Yeah,
And
okay.
so there is nothing that I won't steal. Nothing. It makes no difference. I'll steal anything from anybody, whether it's the song was written in 1910 or 1920 or the painting was painted in 1776. It doesn't matter. It's mine. It belongs to me. The artist put it out there for me to take. And I think that's the way everybody's got to look at it. If you don't look at it that way, then you're in a box.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't do that because so-and-so did that. I don't give a shit what so-and-so did. Who cares what so-and-so did? I don't care what he did. This is what I'm doing. You know, and I love these people that go, well, I could do that. Yeah, but you didn't. You didn't do it. He did it. So, oh yeah, I could do that. Then why don't you do it then? Shut up. Do it.
All right, I'm going to, at this point, open it out to the audience that if you
Because
like
I won't
to-
answer his questions.
No, John, no, my last one I was going to do, you have to forgive me. It's this old art historian guy in me. I was thinking, there's one other thing. When Cartier-Bresson was asked, what is your art? Some guy asked what your art is to Cartier-Bresson. And Cartier thought a minute and he said, you know, my art lies where I identify what I want to do and when I hit the click on my camera. In the space there is where I identify my art. So my last question would be, at what point, creatively, do you know that you're onto something?
Well, I like things to be a surprise. I always like to be surprised. I just made a new record called Plain Spoken, and every one of these songs were channeled to me. I don't even know what they're about. I don't even know what they're about. Now, once I play these songs 80, 90 times, I'll know what the song is about. But songs like The Isolation of Mister, I got a good idea what that's about. Troubled Man, I got a good idea. But there are songs that I know that Tennessee Williams channeled me. I know there's songs that Faulkner channeled me. I know I sound crazy, but it's true. You get, your mind is open to information coming in. Like all you folks probably sit there and go, gosh, that'd make a good painting, or gosh, those words right there would make a good song. I had a guy say it to me today. It was the worst idea I ever heard in my life. But anyway, he said, that'd make a great song, John. You should write a song about that. And I'm thinking, oh yeah, it'd be really good. You and a typewriter. That's what he was talking about, what a crummy typist he was. So anyway, but most people just let those thoughts go.
Yeah.
Well, I've never let those thoughts go since I was 17. So that's what I do. I take those thoughts and live with those thoughts for years and years. And like the name of my new record is Plain Spoken. That title has been around since 1985, I think. That was going to be the name of an album in 1985, but it didn't work there, it didn't work there, didn't work there. And even furthermore, I stole it from my best friend who's now dead. He was the editor of Billboard magazine. He goes, John, you should call this record Plain Spoken. I said, oh, fuck you, Tim, that's no good. I don't like that. But now I finally made a record where Plain Spoken seemed applicable to what's on the music. So, it just lives with me. An idea lives with me forever and ever. I don't forget anything, I know. Plus I got reams and reams and reams and reams of books with lyrics in them, My kids will say, we should have committed Dad when I die, because they're going to go, what was he writing about? And they'll look at my early paintings and go, why did he even continue? They're so terrible. Why did he even continue painting? But I'll go back to those paintings and I'll go back to those lyrics and hold on to those ideas. Because if it was a good idea in 1951, it's a good idea today. So all good ideas always are good ideas, and all bad ideas seem to always remain bad ideas. It's a bad idea to, well, you can imagine. Because we all have bad ideas, and we all act on our bad ideas. There's probably some paintings hanging up in here that are bad ideas. I've got songs that I know were bad ideas. I have actions that I can promise you were bad ideas.
All right. From the audience, yes.
Rick, you just mentioned your earlier paintings, that some that you were not impressed with. Was there an earlier aha moment when you finally got the confidence to put your artwork out there to people, or that you finally said, okay, I'm a painter? Was there a moment, or how did you go from painting in your garage to exhibiting your work?
That's a good question. I don't really think there was an aha moment. I think that what it was with me is that it was, I always viewed it, I could always do it. I could always draw. As a kid, I could do all that kind of stuff. My report card when I was like a senior in high school was D, 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 F, F, A. Guess what A was? Art. All the rest of the classes I didn't care about. I have a son going to RISD right now, and it's like, he didn't even, I said, Spec, do you want to see your grades? And he goes, am I going back next year? And I said, yeah. He said, what did I get in painting? I go, A. He goes, I don't care. That's all he cared about. He didn't care about his social studies. He didn't care about anything. What did I get in my painting class? Am I going back next year? So that's all he cared about. So the same pretty much with me, with going from what I called, I used to laugh about it when I first started doing this kind of stuff, was you wouldn't criticize a guy about his hobby, would you? How could you criticize somebody about their hobby? It's like me going out with you guys and going, that golf swing's all screwed up, your bowling is terrible, So I viewed it as a hobby. But a few years ago, some people came to me and they just said, John, what are you going to do with all this stuff? Actually, it was Bob Dylan came to me, and he was in my studio, and he goes, what are you going to do with all this stuff? I go, I don't know. Give it to my kids, I guess. He goes, they don't want it. they'll just give it away or sell it. So he introduced me to some people, and that's how it started.
I was just curious at the point where you're at now in your life, whether the painting is more satisfying. Do you enjoy painting in terms of your creative satisfaction any more than making music at this point?
I never really have thoughts like that. I don't really judge. To me, it's the same thing. So I'm like a switch hitter. I can hit kind of left-handed and right-handed, and it doesn't make any difference to me. Depends on the pitcher, how I'm going to bat. It doesn't matter to me. I don't judge that way.
Yes, back there.
Hi, I'm Kelly with Fox 35. I'm just curious to hear what you think about the
The truth of the matter is that I never could figure out why in the world anybody would want to live in the middle of Florida. It's the middle of Florida. There's no ocean. It's hot. It's buggy. Why would you want to live here? But when I drove into town, I was so happy that I didn't say anything, because my impulse, I'm a big mouth, my impulse was, why would anybody want to live in the middle of Florida? But I drove into town and I thought, wow, look at this architecture. Look at this. Look at this. They've maintained their downtown. And then, I met a few of the people, and I kind of have a girlfriend, and I kind of said to Peg, I said, you don't believe the little town I'm in right now. I would have never expected this town to be in the middle of Florida. So that's what I think of it. If you guys have an old house that, I'd like to see your old houses.
Along those lines, John, I mean, you're the guy who wrote a song called Small Town. How important is you that this exhibit is in DeLand as opposed to Atlanta, Orlando, or any other place? Did you have any part in your exhibit going to museums in smaller towns?
No, not really. I met him in Ohio. In Ohio?
Yeah.
And we had a conversation, and he saw the exhibit, and that's how it happened.
You know, let me talk about that too. It's really interesting. John's damn good at what he does. You look around, you know, because of this worldview, there's a guys from New York. Most of the people in these smaller towns, New York, East Coast, collectors, guys that have been around, and when they come and it's refreshed that they come to these small towns, they want to be treated like they want to be treated in Manhattan. And as far as a director here, a little museum like this that could do a show of John's work gains national profile almost immediately. Why? Not because of the people who live here. They take it back, so there's hardly a place you can go in a country, unless you go way back in Montana now, or way back in Alaska, that you're not going to hit the people who really appreciate what you do. And I'll tell you, smaller museums are very interesting. The fact is that you get to be right up close. I know you go into these big museums, you got about 20 feet between you and the painting, you got 6 guards over there, you got some piece of plastic across the front. You never really get to communicate with the artist or see him or talk to him like they would be like any one of you. So I'll tell you, the small towns in Connecticut, small towns in Philadelphia, small towns in the Midwest are peopled by bigger city people who really enjoy and are more attentive to what they see. They're not distracted by all the other cacophony of things. So,
well, and there's more to it than that too, is that any artist or songwriter that is any good at all did not come from a big city. Where did Woody Guthrie come from? Oklahoma. Where did Hank Williams come from? Alabama. You know, where did the Beatles come from? Liverpool. You guys ever been to Liverpool? I have. Nobody wants to be in Liverpool. It's a terrible place. Terrible, terrible. Longshoremen, boats, disgusting, stinky fish flopping around. It's a terrible place. But if you look at any great songwriter, painter, most did not come from a big city. I defy any people to tell me a great songwriter that came from New York City. Name it. Where's the great songwriter from Los Angeles? Now, they might have ended up there, but they didn't start there. So small towns, you know, New York, Los Angeles have got nothing to do with America. They really don't. You know, and it amazes me that we admire and pay attention to the shit that comes out of there. Who cares? I don't care, you know. What are they, have you seen movies lately? I mean, what happened to the dumbing down of America? Once upon a time, they made Tennessee Williams' Streetcar Named Desire. It was the #1 movie in 1951, won 8 Academy Awards. Can you imagine if you put Streetcar out today? People go, what is this piece of garbage crap? We don't want to see this. We would never had Marlon Brando. We would have never had Vivian Leigh. We would have never seen, you know, a production of that on Broadway. Oh, you would now because it was, you know, Broadway might cob onto it now because it's like 50 years later and it's been so successful. But if somebody came to Broadway right now and said, read this, they'd go, get out, you know, because it's just not, you know, what, it's the dumbing down of America. You know, I hate to say it, but, you know, we're number one in thinking that we're number one and last in education. Where Asian people are last in self-confidence, but number one in education. So, I mean, what does that say about us? I mean, you know, I shouldn't even be talking about this, but this fucking rah-rah America stuff really makes me, you know, I don't go for it, because it's just not true. Because what we're rah-rah in America about is something that our ancestors did, something that happened in World War II, what Roosevelt did, what Teddy Roosevelt did. That's what we're rah-rah in American about, not what we did. Our generation, my generation, guess what? We can wear blue jeans. And we got little beepers so the deaf people that aren't there can hear, can feel, or whatever. That's what liberals did. We put little platforms like that so that the people in wheelchairs that aren't really there can roll down, while conservatives stole Wall Street and broke this country. So you can say Barack Obama or George Bush, I don't give a shit. They're politicians. Roosevelt was the best president we ever had. He had 12 years in the White House. It should be that way. A guy should be able to be president for as long as he can be elected. And these senators and these representatives, they should be allowed 4 years as an honorary position. So you are the representative from this community for 4 years, and you do. So special interests can't buy you off because you're representing these people. And in 4 years, you know you're done. So what do you care about? What do you care about? You know, GMO people putting crap in our food, and you know, what do you care? Because you got to come back home, and that's the way it should be. A guy should be able to be president as long as he can be president, as long as the people want him, the same way Roosevelt was. And then the rest are honorary positions that you have for 4 years. Did you guys get sick? Where were we at, Trevor? I was at my house in South Carolina. What was that guy's name?
John Barrow.
I want to kill myself. John Barrow is on TV in South Carolina every 3 seconds talking about all the shit that he didn't do that his opponent says that he did. I mean, that's the stupidity that we live with and the money that's being wasted in South Carolina for John Barrow. If I saw John Barrow, I'd punch him in the nose. I don't care what you did. I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican. I'm just sick of looking at you. So anyway.
Okay, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate you all being here.